Hi, everybody. It's Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles, Stories of the Supernatural. And today I have a super special guest. It's Kristen Lee, the owner of the very haunted Bellaire House in Ohio. Okay. And as you know, she lived there. She's experienced everything firsthand. Plus, a bunch of other paranormal groups have gone in there and have done their own things. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like getting it directly from a person that has lived there, has done the research into the background, and has seen firsthand what are the manifestations that take place there. Okay, which, believe me, that in and of itself, even if you read her book, yeah, even with other paranormal groups, that firsthand daily experience of living in a house like the Bellaire House, it's uh, it's got to be an ever changing thing, and we'll get into that later. But here we go. Hey, Kristen, how are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for spending the next couple moments with me. How are
Oh,
you
don't worry about
tonight?
that. Yeah, we were having prior to this, we were having a Skype moment, and like more than a moment. We were like, thank God that she got her techno teenager to save the day. Otherwise,
Yes.
so it's like, oh,
Kids.
yeah, it's like what? But anyway, Kristen. Anyway, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time and talking about your experiences. I'm sure you've done a million times, but you know what? I know there's a lot of nuances that go on with owning a property. Besides the fact that that once you lived there but you left, of owning a property like the Baylor House. But before we get into that, um, did you ever have encounters with the paranormal before you ever lived there in the Bel Air house?
Not like that. No, never. Never like that. Um, Honestly, God, no. I am a psychic medium. I've always been an intuitive. I've always been really in tune with spirit, and I was
Okay.
raised that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I was raised in a very positive, loving, happy, love, light, and I think that
Okay.
without the negative, there's no balance. You know what I'm saying? I'm not
Sure.
saying I wanted this. I never wanted this to happen, but that's the truth of the matter. So, um, nothing like this. No, nothing, and
Right.
absolutely nothing.
So
Mm-mm.
in other words, you had it sounds like you were an open-minded person as far as the paranormal and things of this nature, but it sounds almost like in a way you were unprepared for what you experienced later on once you got the Bear Lair house. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, 100%, yes.
Okay.
I
And
believed in spirit. I believed
sure.
in afterlife. I
Mm-hmm.
believed in so many different wonderful things, but the night that I saw that full apparition on the couch, it woke me up. That's when I think everything changed for me. I questioned my sanity. You know, I definitely blame psychology because of the flash floods and because of us being homeless, opposed to paranormal. And I kept
Right.
doing that over and over and over again. I mean, I think I went through the whole diagnostic manual, the DSM,
Well,
trying to
and you know what? That's
pinpoint it.
but that's good in a way because you know what? You were trying to rationalize it, which a lot of people do even when they experience even minor paranormal stuff, nothing to the degree of that. But you made a good point. One thing is when you read about a story where somebody says, "Hey, I saw a full body apparition," or you see a show and you seeing it with your own two eyes.
Right.
That's, and I think that that's where there's like a mind shift. And so what happened? You saw it, and was it the seeing? Was there also some type of feeling that came with it? What
Fear, pure
fear?
fear, pure
Okay.
absolute fear. I mean, it woke me up. I've never had anything wake me up like that ever in my life. I've had nightmares and stuff like that from
Sure.
watching spooky
Mhm.
shows with the old beta VHS tapes back in the day, like
Sure.
Jason Voorhees and stuff, but nothing ever like that. Not seeing something. I mean, I thought that I was delusional. I thought that I was suffering from visual hallucinations from maybe triggered by PTSD because of the flood and not sleeping and not working. And then I even went in further later in the years and started reading like journals from PhDs out of Stanford that study paranormal and paranormal investigators. And
Right.
Oh, I got to kiss my kid. I'm so sorry.
That's all. We can all. Hey,
He
definitely,
just
we can
pops out of
always
nowhere for
stop for
hugs and
that.
kisses.
Yes.
But and then I even thought, because the paranormal investigator, well, they hardly sleep, and they're on the road, and they're up all night, and they're investigating, and then they have their real lives, you know what I mean, with their real
Sure.
jobs and their families. So how are they sleeping? Is that some sort of a form that would trigger them to see see things that truly aren't there? Is it the suggestion? Because no one told me the house was haunted. So I
Okay.
ruled out suggestion. That wasn't an option. But that lack of sleep, that overworking, because I was working 2 jobs and I
Mm-hmm.
was in graduate school. So yeah, I was tired. So I thought
Yeah.
that first, you know?
Let me ask you, when you saw it, obviously, I understand the fear part. And the reason why I say this is I've had that experience. One thing is the fear part, because basically you're seeing something that you're thinking, okay, this is paranormal, whatever. Was there any foreboding that was coming off of it? I guess is my question, or was it just you, of course, having what I call a Scooby Doo moment where you're like, how can I be seeing this? And you're scared because you're scared, or was there something, some type of how can I say it, malevolence that was coming off of it that which was made you even have a worse?
No, I think I was just so
It
startled.
was
And
just the
Bella,
startle. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah, and our
okay.
dog was growling and she was going in circles. And Hefe and Lane, my son,
Mm-hmm.
they were still sleeping. I mean, but a hurricane could happen and those two would still sleep.
Right.
So I had to wake Hefe up, and it's like some guy was just here. And looking back to, I was telling Noreen about this a couple of years ago.
Right.
That cushion went down. So there's weight to spirit. There's absolutely weight. Because I know it went down. I thought it was Hefe trying to get lucky. And I really thought that's
Right.
what it was when I was sleeping. But when I
Yeah.
opened my eyes, it was a full. It reminds me of like shrimp. When you cook shrimp, it becomes that translucent, like gray. That's
Yes.
what this figure looked like. And I know it was a male because I could clearly see the features of his face.
Let me
And that
ask you,
was the first time.
did he was here? My dog's having. Was there any animation to his face, any type of expression on it, or was it
Just
that
solace. Just a solace look. Just no expression. Flat affect.
flat out?
Complete and
Yes.
total.
Yes, and I know exactly what you're talking about. That, you know what? Only the dead can do that. With that
Okay.
wide-eyed
I didn't
stare,
know that.
no expression, nothing, nothing. If you, no living person, I don't care how still you are, can ever duplicate that. Only the dead can do it, which is that open eye, unblinking, like you said, flat affect, nothing. Okay, it's like they
Mm-hmm.
took a jar of Botox and put it all over their face. Nothing. And I think that's part of what's so scary when you see something like that, because it's unnatural in a living person. Okay,
Right.
even a person that's resting, that's sleeping, will never, ever, ever have that stillness in the face. And we do a lot of communicating, by visual cues, you know, and I think that that's also what scares a lot of people when they see something like what you described, because to
Mm-hmm.
them it's like, somewhere in your brain you're going, that guy is besides, like you said, that weird color, that thing is that, that, hey, there's something here that's not quite, but of course, like you did, you jumped to the thing, is like, I'm seeing somebody, I think dead, alive, I don't know.
Right.
And how you said, had the house that empty for a while before you got it?
It did. It did. The previous owners had foreclosed on the home.
Mm-hmm.
They will not communicate with me. They won't tell me why. Um,
Really?
and I hate to be negative because I choose positive over negative all the
Sure.
time. I really try to do that. But like the kids that would hang out at her house and stuff like that, they are just violent little girls on Facebook. Well, every time we post something, and one of them even said it was her mission in life. It was to destroy me. Well,
Are you
why?
kidding?
Yeah. So
Why?
what secrets are they keeping? What are they trying to do? And it's not only fighting with the negative. spirits inside of the Bellaire House, or the negative energy inside of the Bellaire House. It's also fighting with the mundane, the uneducated mundane
Right.
here in the local area. So everybody, the news, the local news, when we aired on Paranormal Lockdown, gosh, they were beating down the door for an interview, and I'm like, not here. I said, this is not our market. Our market is national. It is not local, because we're right in Bible Belt. And
Right.
I have been called a Satanist. I have been called a baby killer. I've been called a goat slayer. I've been called so many different things
Alrighty then.
because,
You eat babies, huh? Okay. Yes, I believe it.
yeah,
I believe it. I believe it. I understand completely, completely where you're coming
it's
from.
difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And you know what? It makes you wonder, where you said about the prior owners, what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
Was that something that they took with them when they left from being there? You know.
I don't know. Who
So
knows?
yeah, and like you
Yeah.
said, it's yeah. There's something there that probably that they had their own experiences, if they even really realized what was going on, and
Right.
that's why they don't even want to talk to you about it. So okay, so you saw this apparition, and you, like you said, you kind of like weirded out, but you said, oh, you went through all this checklist of, I'm going crazy, I'm delusional, I'm seeing things, I'm overworked, I'm stressed, you name it. What was the next thing that happened that you said, okay?
The next thing that happened to me, yeah, was we went to, well, I went to Walmart optical department to get my glasses, and there was a local man sitting there, and I was so excited about the house. The house is just beautiful, and
Okay.
I was going on and on and on with him about the gables and all of this, and he stopped me. He's like, "Yes, I know about that house." He's like, "That's where the old seer lived." And silly me, I'm like, "And the yard is so big, and blah blah blah, and yada yada." And I'm driving home to Bellaire Hardware to get more supplies to fix the house,
Okay.
and it hit me. I was like, "Oh my God, a seer! Holy cow!
That's an
Okay, I got it."
unusual word, by the way. Not a lot of people
Yeah,
use that word.
yeah. So it hit me, and I went into the house, and I'm like, "Hefe, I met this guy who's a local, and he said that a seer lived here." And he's like, "Oh, okay, cool." He had no idea. He's like, "I got to go upstairs and get the bathroom done." He's like, "I don't have time."
Yeah, he's
So,
like, right. Okay, so
so
Sear, like in Sears catalog. Okay, no, I know it. I know
yeah,
what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I went to the dining room, and I just stood there for such a long time right in front of the fireplace. And it turns out through research years later that that's where Edwin Hetherington did the seances, because that's where his sister died. Lai died in the house, and
Okay.
she died in front of the fireplace. For some reason, I don't know if it was my intuition. I don't know if spirit led me there. I don't know. That's unexplainable to me still to this day, but it's very odd that this man would just come out of nowhere and tell me that a seer lived there. And I went back to the optical department like years later to try to find his records, right? I was
Right.
like, this was the date that I was here. Can you give me the information of, the people that the doctor saw that day? Well, no, they can't. That's HIPAA violations. But I tried everything to find him,
Right.
you know,
Because it makes it.
and
It sounds like somebody that had been living there a while.
I
If he
never
was
did find
aware,
that man.
it sounds like somebody that's been there for a while. If he was
A
aware of
resident.
that, um,
He was a
it's
local.
yeah, with a local and who knew about the history. Because I mean, how long ago had that man lived at the house? Quite a while back. So and so okay, but you know, so you're like,
Yes,
okay, well,
it was. Yep. But he was probably, I'd say he was in his 80s, maybe early 90s.
oh, okay, so yeah,
Did I lose
definitely.
you?
Okay, so he had been around for a while then, and but
Yes.
still, from what you're telling me, you're still happily decorating your new house, which you're thrilled to be in. With the one time that you saw a guy, you're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, all right,
Yep.
which is great because to me it's like you the last thing you were really looking for was to say I've got a haunted house. You were caught up in living life, in other words.
Right. The beds are going here. Oh my goodness, we get to go in the refrigerator and not share it with 3 other families tonight. Woohoo!
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
We get to use a towel, and it probably wasn't on Uncle Roy's butt. Woohoo!
Yeah.
All those great
Hey,
things, you
you know
know?
what? Of course, and that's what I call you were living life. You're doing, you're like, you know, the last thing on your mind was like
Ghosts.
ghost or what came afterwards.
Right.
So, did anybody later on, or were you the only one at the beginning that was having experiences?
No, my oldest son, he didn't feel comfortable sleeping in that master bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
He actually started sleeping on the couch, and he came to me one day. He said, "Ma," he's like, "somebody's watching me in there." He's like, "I'm
Wow.
not sure if it's Auntie or she's protecting me or she's letting us know that we've arrived and we're safe and it's time to build self sufficiency." He says, "But it just doesn't feel right, you know." And I trust him because he he'll get there when he's older. He's 23 right now, but when he was when 9/11 happened, he ran into my bedroom and he's like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, the Statue of Liberty's on fire."
Wow.
And yeah, so he's very, 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 and it hadn't happened yet. It happened later that morning. That his father ran into the house and was screaming, "Turn the news on, turn the news on." So I know that we call him Ringo. That's his real name, but we
Okay.
call him Nick too. Yeah, we call him Ringo. But he's very, very intuitive. He's so, 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 so intuitive, and he's done so well. With what we have all been through in our family. He's just graduated from college with English Lit, and he's
Wow.
going on for his master's. He just bought his own home, and I'm a little disappointed in him because he didn't tell me that he was buying a home. Because he knew what I would do. I would research everything about it. I would go inside of it,
Yes.
and I would make sure that my son was protected. So, in that way, he did it on his own, but he wanted to be a big boy and make those decisions, and I respect that. I raised him to make those decisions, but he is just after all that we've been through, I couldn't ask for a greater kid.
That's
He's
fantastic.
amazing.
That's
hmm
fantastic. Yeah,
He's overcome so much. Yes.
and you know what? When you have, it's like it's really difficult to ever let go of that mommy thing. But
Yeah.
like you said, it's a really good feeling when you see that your kid, is making his way in the world as an adult and is self-sufficient. And yeah, it's
hmm
difficult to curtail that effort, like you just said. Well, after that, I'm. But hey, you know what? Bottom line, you're always there for as a safety net. So
Right. Yep. It's funny though because he's a homeowner and he can live in his house, but we can't.
you know, it's incredible to think of it. Um,
We laugh about that.
well, you know what? Better to you know what? And Kristen, I'm gonna tell you. I see a lot of people that are involved in the paranormal that sometimes take it too seriously and don't know how to laugh about things.
Right.
Okay. And it's like you can't get then you start getting into the morbid things.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. I agree with you that you need to laugh about things because and keep it in perspective. Otherwise, it overcomes you because let's face it, you're talking about dead people or horrible circumstances that they died, or in your case, what happened with you was all these set of circumstances where it sounds like you got to the point where you realize it's not me, it's what's in
Right.
here.
Right. Yep.
We're
And
living
I
in my
remember
home, which is the worst part.
Yeah, because I remember there were days. This is when I was alone in the house because we all separated. All of us separated. Nick went first, and then Hefe left, and then Lane and I left, and I took a job as a psychologist in Columbus, Ohio. We
Okay,
had renters, and the renters didn't stay, so we couldn't stay in Columbus. We had to come back because we still had a mortgage.
right.
And I remember those days where we would be in the house and it would be so draining. Like I seriously remember having the futon mattress in the living room. That's where we slept, and frying chicken, and waking up the next day after eating the chicken, the meat, and it was still there. And that's not like me. I would just go to sleep, and we would sleep all the time.
Right.
And he would too. Lane would too. And when we would go outside, the sun was shining, the birds were singing. We would go to friend's house, and it would be normal. But as soon as we went back in that house, it was abnormal.
So
It
yeah.
wasn't, there was something weird going on there. And that's what we called it back then. It's just weird. It's just odd.
So it's somewhere along the line you realized, okay, everything changes when we are in here.
Right. hmm
And let me ask you, that family that was there all that time, did they ever call you with anything, Kristen, that you were like, okay, I think I know what they're calling about? Or what happened when they, with them
The
while they were,
renters,
yeah.
yeah, the renters reported the little girl seeing, laughing at things that weren't there. The
Wow.
father had been staying in the attic. He would never leave the attic, just like Hefe. He was
Really?
always in the attic. He actually, I don't know how the heck he did this, but bring a pool table in the attic, and that was his man cave. And that's exactly what happened to Hefe. Exactly. He
Isn't that
never came out
amazing?
of that attic.
That's very
Hmm.
unusual. You know that, right?
Yes, yes, yes. That's why I don't believe in synchronicities anymore. Not even in life, like everyday life. I just don't. There's always a correlation. There's always some sort of a spiritual correlation that needs to be looked at, and we have to look at it with an open point of view
Right.
and accept and believe and have faith that we are all spiritual beings here to learn lessons and to love and reciprocate love and help the most people. I truly believe that. The Bellaire House taught me that. There's no other reason why we're here. There isn't.
So what happened? When was, here you are, you're drawn back to it because, like you said, you just couldn't walk away from a mortgage. So here you come back. And what happens? Do you start having experiences again, or what happened when you
Hmm.
came back?
Yeah, we came back, and then Lane went to stay with Hefe's parents because it was just safer for him to be there. And I just didn't trust the house. At that point, I didn't trust the house, but I couldn't tell my peers because they were all psychologists, and I didn't want to be locked away. Um, because you know how the psychology mind goes.
Yeah.
The auditory and visual hallucinations. She's going crazy. Because I would have diagnosed someone like that too. I would have. I mean, I absolutely 100% would have. And so friends started to come and stay with me because I was alone. It was just me and Bella in the house. And
Okay.
then finally, the one profound thing that happened, and I didn't write about it in the book because I had forgotten about it, but my friend Johnny Bowman, he and I were playing music. We were, I play music. I think all paranormal people play music. There's something there with that. But I, that's my therapy. That's what I do to release. And we were in
Okay.
the living room playing music, and the phone started ringing, like the phone on the wall.
Okay.
And I had unplugged. I disconnected that phone months ago, so there's no reason why it was ringing. And Bowman looked up at me and he said, he says, "You're going to answer the phone?" I said, it's probably a creditor. I'll just let it go because I couldn't even tell him.
Right.
Here's this badass metal sleeved out tattoo person that would have accepted it and probably would have helped me.
Yeah.
Um, but I was still too scared to tell anybody that the house was what it was. And my claims
Mm-hmm.
were strong. But he was right there, and I could have walked up to the phone and said, "Look, Bowman, it's no cords. There's nothing here."
He would have been like, "What?" Yeah.
Yeah, but he reminded me of that after I came out and told people, and
Mm-hmm.
um, then we were on TV, and he reminded me about that. But he won't come back to the house because he's scared to death of the house because of that incident now.
Well,
But his daughter and his wife had come into the house too, and she saw a little boy, and she kept calling him TJ. TJ's hurt. TJ has boo boos. TJ fell down the steps. Well, one of the investigators found a carved name in the attic, in the panel of the attic for TJ. I'd never seen that before. And nobody knew about that. No one
right.
knew that little Laura had saw some person named TJ.
That there was a correlation, an actual. Let me ask you something, Kristen, and I'm going to ask you because every time that things come up that have to do with children, do you think that these are actual spirit of children, or are they something that's mimicking children?
Menza, Menza. Not at the Bellaire House. Not at the Bellaire House, no. I don't feel like that. But when I when I do my work, my psychic medium work, there are children that come through, and I know that they're children
Okay.
um, because you know it's I go into it in a different way. I don't feel, and you can even look at history and people that are psychic, people that are this are possessed, and they can conjure anything and they can hear anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought I was that for a couple of years too, but that's hard. That's hard. That's harder to deal with. And I hadn't found anybody that would help me to overcome that, because even MSWs, I mean, I went to so many different of my peers. I mean, hey guys, what do you think of this? The cat's out of the bag. My house is haunted, but I'm not crazy because here's the evidence. And they couldn't come up with anything either from that psychological point of view. So I don't know. That's an answer. I just don't know.
Okay.
In the Bellaire House, no, absolutely not. No.
Okay.
But outside of that, I don't, I'm 50-50. I'm still men's on that one,
Okay. Well, you know what? And it's understandable. And when you mentioned that thing about that you were even having a hard time telling this friend of yours, which more than likely he would have understood. Um, if you think about it, once you actually spoke it, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is real. I can't, how many things are going to happen? And once you
Right.
start talking about it, it was like, okay, that's it. There's no more like,
Yes.
I can backtrack on this and it was just my imagination or whatever. So that's
Right.
understandable, which, it put you in a tough spot because this is where you lived. This is not like, you know, every place you go, you got to go home. So
Right.
at what point did you feel okay? Besides the fact, like you said, I'm feeling drained, and it's so much so that you realize this is where I'm in this place that I start feeling this way. When was the next event? Besides, and I know what you're saying because a lot of people sometimes think that the
Um,
paranormal takes place like in 72 hours, and sometimes it creeps in very slowly, much slower than people think. And like you said already, kind of your family, had gone off in a little bit of different directions. You
right.
had to come back.
Yes.
What happened then where you said, at what point did you realize, okay, this is just not a scary haunted house where because it's ghost and I'm seeing things and maybe I feel a little bit drained, that you felt that, okay, this is something maybe out of my depth, that this is dark. What happened?
Right.
Was there a significant moment where
I
you said,
was at home. Friends came in from Florida and to stay with me.
mm-hmm,
Hmm. Yeah, it was, and I was in the back bedroom, and things were gone. It was me and the hand, Bella, and I was pinned down to the bed. I couldn't move. It felt like paralysis because the only thing that I could move was my eyes. And Bella, my dog, had been trying to free me. She was trying to protect me. She was just barking and scratching, and it was. I thought I was going to die. I thought that was it. I thought that
wow,
when Summer and uh, John got home, that they were going to find me dead. And
wow,
Bella had tried so hard to free me that she was thrown up against the wall, and I saw her be just lifted up by nothing, like nothing. Not there's nothing that lifted her up. There's nothing, and she just was slammed up against the wall.
oh my
And
God,
at that pivotal point, my left arm came free, and then when that came free, I started pleading the blood of Jesus Christ and calling upon Saint Miguel,
mm-hmm,
and that's all I knew at that point. That's all I knew how to do. I probably screamed for Yama Ya and all the others. It was just I was so scared, and I picked her up and we got out. We left, and I went to the reservoir and just floated in the water for hours. And she had her leg hurt pretty bad, but she was okay. And the next day, I went back to the house and I started petitioning to get me out of that house.
okay,
And a few days later, out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere, and this is by the grace of the gods, that we had a hailstorm a couple of weeks prior to that incident, and all of these big construction workers were in town and they all needed places to live. So this guy knocked on my door and he said, "Would you like to rent your house out to 10 construction workers?" And I
and you're
said,
like, yeah,
"Yeah, when do you want me out?" And he said, "Tomorrow." And I said, "Give me 3 days." And boom, we were gone, left. See you
wow,
later. Bye.
okay,
And then they didn't stay. They sublet, and the subleasers left, and that's when I filed bankruptcy on the house.
You know what? Never found out if those guys had any experiences, or did they just like
Oh
we're
yeah.
out of here?
No. They did. They did not like me because I wasn't on the up with them. I knew what that house was, but I didn't. And this is something that I'm gonna have to live with this part for the rest of my life. I knew what it was, but I didn't care because I cared about myself and my family more than about anybody else, and
But
that's
Kristen,
tough.
that's
That's tough to deal
understandable.
with. Didn't have another
Also,
choice.
don't be so hard on yourself, because in truth, you know what? There's people sometimes that their sensibilities are little, and they could live in a very haunted house and have almost no experiences.
Right.
Okay, not everybody is as open, or you just, or sometimes even things where what's in the house won't even interact with them for whatever reason. So to be honest with you,
Hmm.
I would have probably have done the same thing. I'm
Yeah.
perfectly honest with you. I would have said, especially after that experience you had, I would have been, okay, these are big guys.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
It's like, but I
Yeah, we
understand.
went from a big old colonial house to a two little bedroom townhouse. Like it was so small. It was probably 680 square feet.
Wow.
And my little cousin, my baby cousin Kayla, man, she made out. I gave her everything.
So let me ask you something, Kristen. When you did that move, now that you moved out, that you weren't living in that house, you felt that difference as well now that you weren't living there?
Yes, it was. It was. I was starting to normalize. I was starting to be able. I was finally finishing up my thesis for my dissertation for
Mm-hmm.
college,
Okay.
and I finally finished college. And I started writing the book too. I'd started writing the book,
Okay.
just documenting, journaling, things like that, just for therapy and stuff like that. But afterwards, uh, they it was that's when I googled Ohio Valley Paranormal Research Investigations. It was very normal. I mean, we went to the swimming pool. We were able to sit on the porch. John had to teach us how to sleep in beds because we had
Okay.
never slept in beds before. It had been years since all of us slept in beds,
Wow.
and he would come home or come over and come home from work sometimes, and he would see us all scattered on the living room furniture. And Lane was little then, so he would carry Lane up to his bed, and a couple hours later, you hear Lane come down, and he'd sleep with me on the couch because that's how we slept. And honestly, this year, or no, I'm sorry, the 2015, we finally bought new beds for ourselves, and
Okay.
we had been sleeping in them. But that it took a long time to learn. And what was so cool about living in that apartment was it was a townhouse. So there was Jose's family that was next to us, and
Okay.
they owned a restaurant called Salake Pake. And it was so cool to hear Miguel and Rafael come home and run up and down those steps. I'm like, that's not paranormal activity. That's not ghosts.
Right.
That's the
It's like
kids.
I don't have to worry. Like, who's making that noise? It's like it's humans. It's cool.
Right. Yes, yes, that was awesome. I mean, I can't tell you how. I mean, I broke down and cried that day, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God, thank you so much for those kids." It was
But you
so
know what?
cool.
Because what you're describing it sounds like back when you were at that house, every little noise you were already second guessing, like, who made that? Who? Yeah, I know nobody like that's human made that. So you probably were constantly, which must have been exhausting, by the way.
It is. It was very exhausting. Yes, yes, indeed. Gosh, was it hard. And the other stuff that was going on, outside of the Bellaire House. It's the house next door has such a really negative, horrible story to it as well, and we were also dealing with that. We were also dealing with what happened next door
I'm gonna
and
stop
social
you right there.
workers.
Is it something that happened in 1995?
No, we can't talk about that.
Okay. All
We're not
right.
allowed to talk about that.
Note
Uh-uh.
that I did not say it. I just said the year,
Right.
and I knew you would
Yeah.
understand it. Okay, so this is something
Yes.
totally separate. Okay.
Totally separate. Yeah. It
Okay.
was right next door to the Bellaire House. And a boy turned a gun on his father because he had been molesting the kids in the basement. And that was public knowledge, so I can say that. I won't say their names out of respect for the family. But
Right.
um, then other people came in to try to live in that house. And at that point, uh, we had resources. We had paranormal resources that
Okay.
were investigating that house as well. Now that house is abandoned. No one lives in it. And we've just started um, trying to think about going inside of there to see if there's a correlation from that house to the Bellaire
Yeah.
house, and if it
Let
was
me ask
indeed the
something.
Bellaire or that house that did it to the Bellaire house.
Did you did this incident occur prior to you guys living at the Bel Air, or at the same time, or what was the timing on that?
The winter that we moved in July 4th weekend, and it was the winter. I believe it was the winter, or maybe the winter after we moved in.
Okay.
It wasn't long because I was working on it for school. I was still in my master's program for school. I know I
Okay.
was because it was a shitty paper. And I heard bang, bang. And I'm a little, I'm from Crabapple. I thought it was somebody catching a deer. I thought somebody shot a deer.
Oh my God!
And
So
then,
you heard it?
yeah, and Hefe's like, you're crazy. He's like, we're in city limits. He's like, honey, he said, nobody shoots deer around here. I was like, yeah, but there's a river and there's a woods. I grew up, my dad was a deer hunter.
Right.
That was normal to me. But it wasn't. Like, before we knew it, we were barricaded in by cops, ambulance, fire trucks, social workers. And
Oh.
yeah, it was bad. It was really bad.
So let
That
me,
that was so horrible.
how long had that been taking place? I mean, I know the culmination was obviously when that incident happened, the shooting. But how long had he been molesting kids before that happened?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't
Probably a
know?
while.
Oh,
I didn't ask. I didn't, because when it comes to kids, I don't,
no,
that,
I'm not
I would have
thrilled with
killed
that
him.
either. But and
Yeah.
the reason why I'm asking is obviously that's as dark can get as far as human behavior
Yes.
is concerned.
Hmm.
And it makes you wonder, like you were asking, like where did it come from? Did it start with Bel Air and go there, or vice versa? That's why I was wondering. You
Right.
know,
And that just occurred to me like this year because we have so much help with the Blair House now with investigators and qualified professional people in the field that are triggering me to look outside of just the Blair House, which is awesome because I can't help, to the whole paranormal community. They've really taken me and my family under their wings, and they've taught us so much. And we're so grateful to all of them. And I would have never thought of that if it wasn't for, Rebecca saying something like that to me. Ever, never thought about that.
and let me ask you something: is that house as old as the Bel Air?
I don't know. I don't know too much about it. Like I said, we're
Oh, okay,
just getting ready to think about starting to see what's going on with that. I know the there's back taxes on the house. It's a
okay.
mess. Like it should be tore down. It is condemned, but I still want to know. I still want to see if there's a correlation there.
Oh no, the reason I was saying is that if it had as if it had been built for at least the length of time like the Bel Air, God knows how many stories are there. You know
Hmm.
that what you witnessed was maybe the tail end of something. And like
Right.
you said, once you do the research, you're gonna find who knows what.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. But everything's on hold. We had so many great ideas, but everything's completely on hold because of the current situation with the Blair
Right,
House. So what's the point to even proceed with investigating the house next door, is what we call it, um,
right.
if we might not even have the Blair House anymore? We don't know.
And let me ask you before we get to that, Kristen. I wanted to ask you something that, and the reason why I'm saying this is, as well as I do, there's a million paranormal groups going out there, or wannabes, or fans, and everything. What would your advice be? Because it sounds like this has affected you your whole life. In other words, it's colored your whole life. Okay,
It has.
almost like a cautionary tale. Sometimes for people that get involved with this or do things, whether it's to invoke or they provoke, or God knows, there's a million things people think of, that they don't really understand what they're letting into their lives. Okay,
Hmm.
and that sometimes this can really affect you profoundly, um, beyond when you're like saying, I don't want to play anymore, you know.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I mean, in other words, from what it sounds like, you're saying, you know, this is for real. This really does happen. This is not the TV or the movie or the, you know what I'm saying? this is something that really happened to me. And I think
Right.
a lot of people sometimes underestimate how realistic what you experienced is. You know, that things like what you described actually do happen. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And and even now, like you said, which we're going to get into, that now after the years that you've been going back and forth, and that now you're trying to save the Bellaire house from losing it, is from what I understand, right?
Yeah, for two reasons. Um, One reason is I don't want to be exploited. I don't.
Okay.
Um, I don't want my kids' faces put on money with my pictures in it. I don't want to have to do something like that. I don't want the village to be exploited. I don't want somebody going in there that is uneducated
Okay.
and just in it for the money to harm. Don't. That's not happen.
Okay.
There's, but going back to what would we say to somebody that wants to be a paranormal investigator?
Mm-hmm.
Don't. Just don't.
Right.
Don't. Why? You know, don't. I
Well,
wouldn't. If you want to look for that miracle, or if you want to look for that validation that there's life after death, or talk to spirit,
right.
do it on your own. Do it in a positive way. Do it talking to God, talking to any deity, meditating, looking for answers, looking for signs, and paying attention to the signs.
Right.
You don't need a piece of equipment to go hunting for demons. Who does that?
Right.
Really?
And this is, and you're making a very good point, which is exactly what I was looking for, which is, if that is the thing that you're looking for, that you want to have. Unfortunately, some people want to go for the shock value, always thinking that, it's, we're going to do this, and then you never know what's going to come through, and you find yourself coming into contact with something that's very dark. And then when
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to have any involvement with it anymore, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's, you're on the
You're on
hook.
their time. Right.
Exactly.
When you're
Exactly.
done playing, the game just begins. That's exactly how it goes, and I've seen it so many times.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a team come in there and completely disrespect me. I say no Ouija boards, no blood rituals,
Right.
no minor rites. You're a 23-year-old child. You are not ordained Catholic bishop from the Vatican. You're not. And
Exactly.
do not do a minor rite in my house, and do not dare do it on a Facebook live feed. First of all, anybody that does any kind of minor rites or solemn rites and videos them and televises them, there's something that's just, it's against the old religion. You shouldn't be doing that in the first place.
Exactly.
But I've had to take a kid out out by the reservoir one
Yeah.
day and educate the whole team. And I've watched that team diminish. I saw on social media that one of the team members was in a head-on collision, totaled his car. He walked away alive, thank God.
Wow.
But these things happen. These things
Yes.
happen, and these it's no different than, you remember that old series Charmed, where all the little
Yeah.
girls finally wanted to be witches, and then
Yes.
they're opening up all of this stuff and they don't know what they're doing. Same thing here. Let's go to the Bellaire House. Let's go to the Hinsdale House. Let's go to Resident Acres, and or the Post Town, and let's open up portals and let's see if we can get the shit scared out of
Right.
us. Well, us,
Exactly.
right.
Exactly.
But they don't understand that I've got a 14-year-old boy that is with me all the time, and I've got to go and clean that mess up. And if they put him in danger, they're not going to like me. And all of the
Sure.
other property owners, they're going to put them in danger, their staff in danger. There are
Exactly.
rules. We get driver's license. We don't drink and drive. You know what I mean? Same
Sure.
thing.
Exactly.
Different arena, but the same thing.
And
Oh,
you know
that
what?
pisses me
And it's,
off.
and I know where you're coming from, because you're not saying, "Oh, don't do paranormal investigation if that's what you want to do." It's the approach and the intention.
Right.
Okay? And there's a big difference between, what can I see, or what can happen that's, I'm going to be like, "Oh my God." And it's like, "Yeah, right. Okay." You know.
Right.
Um
I think that a personal experience with someone in a haunted location is going to really change their mind and
oh
shape them.
yes.
And I honestly,
Yes.
watched, we've had thousands, and I have favorites, and I have awesome favorites. Mike Simpson. If anybody is looking to be trained, I would totally get with Mike Simpson. He is by far the best paranormal investigator. He's so smooth. He is so nice. He's when we when I investigated with him, we not only spoke to spirit, earthbound spirit, inhuman spirit, native spirit, coal
Right.
miners, but we also spoke to something that wanted to be called star people.
Oh, righty then. Yeah, I don't worry. I'm not. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm. By the way, I'm not saying I know exactly what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. That man is just tuned in. He is completely, totally tuned in and respectful, completely 100% respectful. And that's how we like to operate at the Bellaire House. Don't come to the Bellaire House if you're not respectful,
Sure.
you know?
And you know what? In after you made mention of what happened next door, how much do you think, Kristen, it's a question also of the land itself before
It
maybe
is.
something was built?
Yeah, it's the land. I mean, it's a part of the French and Indian War, the coal mine fire, not the explosion. The explosion's connected to that portal, but we didn't know that back then. We were green, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have the right paranormal researchers with us, and I believed what anybody said at that point in time because I didn't know. But with years of research, the fire happened under the house, which was $8,000 to put out in the 1850s.
Wow, which is a lot of money. You're absolutely right.
And then we have the Ohio River in front of the house, and then we have the train wrecks, and we have, gosh, just poverty because we're right beside the the apartments that are based on income,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the coal miners, a lot of the steel mill workers, um, and just regular didn't work anyway, are there, and there is that level of oppression, depression,
Absolutely.
infestation, and now,
Absolutely. And
right. So it's all right there.
let me tell you something, and I understand really, really well what you're talking about, and I guarantee you, not everybody's going to understand what you just said. Okay,
Hmm.
there's a lot of people that don't understand that the perimeters of things is so far out from where you actually live every day. Okay,
Right,
and they don't look beyond their own front yard. In other words, and what
right.
you
And I can't tell
described,
you how many times Sundays, 1 o'clock, I'm down there blessing their homes, their
yes,
apartments.
yes,
And they're good people. My God, are they good people? They're such good people. They'll give you the shirt off their back.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it looks like a rough neighborhood, but you know what? They've been unemployed for so long, and
yes,
there's no jobs in our area. There
right,
isn't. And, yeah, the neighborhood looks rough, but you go down in the apartments and you ask, gosh, Tiffany for a bottle of salt, she's going to give it to you. You go up and ask Susie for a pumpkin pie, she's going to make you one right there. That's how those
right,
kind of people. I mean, that's how we are.
right.
But
But I know,
unfortunately,
I
they
know,
have
I
rough.
know. Getting back to what I asked you originally about the land, yes, okay, and that partially
Hmm.
explains what's going on. In other words, that it's like a ripple effect is, beyond the actual Bellaire house. It's like a
Right.
ripple
It's the
effect outwards from
land.
there. Yeah. Well, I
Yes,
I,
and
I
it
take it back.
has.
The Bellaire house, for all we know, might not be the epicenter. You
No,
know.
it's not. It's not. I can't tell you how many cases are there. I can't even count them on my finger. And the good part about the Blair House is we have probably 300 business cards from paranormal investigators that if a family needs help, they know where the key is. We're a
Mm,
tight knitted community. Go in that resource book and call them.
right.
That's how we operate down there. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Yep.
It's one of those things, Kristen, that it's almost like I can totally understand where you're at. Personally, you want the distance because you've had the downside of it, but at the same time, you've invested all this effort and time and everything into it that it's like you don't want to be bested by it either because your intentions have never been in, like you said, to exploit it. It's just to discover what's there
Right.
or to understand it, in other words.
Absolutely.
and that makes a big difference.
I mean,
I'm
we're
sorry.
looking for investors. We're looking for partners. We're looking for partners. We're looking for investors because I can't do this on my own.
Sure.
That area, it's just I have respiratory problems because of that house. Gosh, I had pneumonia for 3 months.
What?
I'm
Wow.
drained. I finally getting back to being normal, or whatever the hell normal is, but
Yeah.
getting back to
It's
my
like,
normal
why be normal?
day life. Right, like when renters would live there for a year,
Mm-hmm.
that was good. We balanced. We found that zen. We were happy. We were baking cupcakes, going to PTA meetings. So, like for the past 3 weeks, when I just raised my hands and I said, what happens, happens. I can't feed this anymore. If I can save it, I can save it. If I can't, I'm at peace with that too. It's their karma if they try to do this to us. That's it. But I'm done. I took that last breath and said, I'm done. I meant it. And I surrendered and I released
Okay.
and I'm finally getting back to who I was before what I have become. That's tough.
And you know what? And I'm really glad to hear that because and I'm gonna make a comment about that. How long we had to go round and round just to connect, and that we both agreed that they were trying to sabotage you talking about this. Okay.
Oh my God.
And you know that as well as I do, that anybody who doesn't understand will go, oh,
Mm-hmm.
those two kooks, what are they
Mm-hmm.
talking about? And it's,
Yep.
no, it's not that. Once you've been around situations like this or
Right.
spiritual turbulence like this, you understand the way it can manifest. Okay. And like I told you,
Yeah.
I've interviewed a bunch of people using Skype. Yeah, and every once in a while, I know Skype sometimes is its own thing, but we were going around and around. We couldn't connect. You were sending me requests. I was sending you requests. We were like missing each other. And yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know that angle. Been there, done that. So let me ask you: are you
Mm-hmm.
still looking? I mean, I know you mentioned that you were looking for investors. Are you looking as far as the GoFundMe page that you had set up? Are you still accepting donations?
Not anymore.
Okay.
No. We have a little PayPal donation button on our website.
Okay.
GoFundMe, I think we raised like maybe $1,200 on there, and
Okay.
they take so many fees out of that. They
Really?
truly do.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I
we
didn't know
don't.
that.
And I didn't want to do that GoFundMe page anyway. I truly didn't. But when
Okay.
a couple of other property owners said, "Well, we're going to do events to raise money for the Bellaire House because we don't want you to leave our community,"
Right.
um, that's when my husband and I were like, "We got to do something. We can't just sit here like bumps on a log and
Right.
let everybody work for us." So
Mhm.
that's why we did that. But then that became so dramatic too, and I don't like the fees that they do. So we just did a donation button on the website. But I think that the best thing to do is get some partners and put their names on the deed, because this is why I say that after talking to Dan from the Hinsdale House,
Right.
he doesn't go there all the time. He has a lot of volunteers, he has a lot of staff, so he doesn't have to go there a lot. And
Right.
honestly, I don't want to go there a lot for two reasons: because it's draining and it
Right.
knocks me off my zen. And the other part of it is walking in and seeing all of those memories, those psychological things, is
Right.
also an imbalance for me too.
Sure.
So if we have partners that can help us, and we have a slew of volunteers now,
Mhm.
which is great.
Okay.
Like Danny and Jim are phenomenal, and Sherry and Kyle and Goat, they help out so much. Um, we can do this, but what this creditor is wanting is stupid. This amount of money that he's wanting is stupid, and there's no
Okay.
reason for this. But
Right.
there's a reason for it. But in my mind, I just can't justify them doing what they're doing. It doesn't make any. It's just not right. And I'll say it again. My dad taught me, Clint Eastwood said, "Fair ain't got nothing to do with it," and I get that. I get it. But these guys are just sharks. They're just sharks.
Yeah.
I don't like them. They don't like me. So I see that the only way to actually save the Bellaire House is getting partners and
Sure.
putting their names on the deed. And if we can't do that, then we'll just, well, I won't say we will. We've already rezoned it as residential. So whomever is trying to have filthy fingers and take the Bellaire House because they think we're millionaires, which we're not,
Okay.
will have a house. They will have a house, because it'll never, ever be rezoned as a business ever again in Bellaire, ever. And
Okay.
I have the word of the mayor as well as the code enforcer.
So in other
They,
words, whoever gets it is either going to have to live it or rent it out as a house, and that's it.
yeah, and that's a shitty situation too, because what if a mundane family comes in, and what happens if they go through what we went through? The karma's bad for them either way. Either way, they're just, it's not good.
You know what?
Not good.
And sometimes, and Kristen, I'm sure you're aware of it. Sometimes you made a good point that there's a point in that that you let it go and see where it goes. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially after you
Yep.
put all this effort and, like you said, how you've had people try to raise money for you, and you're doing things on your end, and you've got people out there rooting for you, especially in the paranormal community. There's a moment that you got to step back and let it go and just see where it goes. And you know one of two
That's
things is
right.
going to happen. And in other words, I
Agreed.
guess my point is, and I'm going to have my little esoteric moment here, which is, you know what, that you say, what I want, the outcome is going to be for my highest good, which means, if my highest good is to stay there and keep it and keep working with it, that's what's going to happen. And if not, it's not. And maybe something better is there for you, because it sounds like you gained a lot of experience during everything that you went through so far with that house, Kristen. You know, uh, it's like
Yeah,
you don't see.
I have. Oh God, I have. I really have.
I mean, I think that, but you know what? I have a feeling that you are going to get somebody to step in there and help you out with that. I really do. It's not wishful thinking on my part, which I do wish the best for you, and, to keep the Bellaire House going, especially the way you described, which is nobody actually lives there and you just have it staffed with people who come and go. But you know what I'm saying? And you just let
Right.
groups use it.
Yep. I mean, it's a fully functional house.
Right,
Yeah. I mean, these groups that come in, they have fully furnished bedrooms. They have a shower. They have towels. They have
right,
soap. They have a refrigerator, a stove. They have food. They have water, heat. They have everything that they need. It's a home, but it's really not a home. It's a business, but it was my home that we just can't live in.
right.
Everything's still there. And the reason why we made the rooms charge people extra money to sleep.
Hmm.
I watch all of the paranormal teams come in. They're coming in at 5:30 to 8 o'clock. They roll in anywhere from that time. They're up until 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm not
Sure.
letting my friends,
No,
my
let me tell you
family, my
something.
paranormal family get on that highway.
You know
Hell
what,
no.
Kristen, I have done investigations since the 1990s, okay? And, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it was, back then it was like you went in there, like, yeah, for a few hours, and that was it. But as you gain more experience, you realize, especially if you're talking a larger area, a bigger house or whatever, you really do not get a good chance to get the full experience on you're there unless you're there for a while. Okay. And of course, the more time you're there, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, that's when you really have the best chance of capturing some type of evidence versus going in there 2, 3, or 4, maybe 5 hours the most. It's just because the supernatural is
Right.
not an on demand thing. Okay. And like you said, sometimes after that, you're like blitzed out. You're like ready, like, I'm ready to sleep because I'm tired. I've
Right.
been, you know, I've been up, like you said, till 5 or 6 in the morning, and I'm ready to crash. So the fact that you offer that for a team to go in there and actually have a place to like lie down and snooze, that's worth,
Yep.
that's invaluable, as a matter of fact.
That's
Sleep is
that's why
very
it's so
underestimated.
popular. Right. That's one of the reasons why it's also so popular. I mean, I've watched Filthy Fingers take this. They call it a business model now. I don't call it that. I
Hmm.
call it, I'm taking care of my friends because I don't want to see them die. I love them. I can't handle my friends dying.
Sure,
I can't do that. That would
sure.
just knock me off my rocker. I'd be like, whatever that sitcom was. I couldn't handle that. There's no way. So, but yeah, other people have caught on to that, and they're like, oh, we're just going to pull a Kristen Lee and be a Bellaire House. That's fine. As long as they're doing it for the right intention, not to make
Hmm.
money, if they're taking
Yes.
care of the people, but they're not. Absolutely not.
And you know
Absolutely
what? And
not.
and and, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm fascinated by what you said about that property next door. I'm telling
Hmm.
you, that right
Well, when we
there.
get off of here, I'll give you the name so you can Google it and look it up
Okay,
and
don't
see.
worry. I mean,
Yeah.
I can, if it made the news, don't worry, I'll find it. But you can, send it to me. But I'm very fascinated, not only because of that, but let me ask you something. How close is it to the Bellaire House, distance wise? Like
Mm,
the yard over? Are we talking what, a quarter of a mile, a few hundred feet?
no, it's right next door. Like there's my
Oh, it's that
shed
close.
outside
Okay.
of the Bellaire House.
Uh huh.
Yeah, it's right next to my shed. Hmm.
Oh, that close. Okay.
Yeah, and I have a deal with the village as long as I maintain the property, like the field,
Mm-hmm.
because we have big yards, we have
Right.
fields.
Right. That's
We can use that to park. So now we can use all of that to park. The Bellaire House people that come to investigate can just park in the field instead of along the fence. So I bought a tractor a couple weeks ago before
okay. Yeah,
I
man.
knew
I
the
got one of
shindig.
my
Or
own, and I'm good at that thing. I live in a large piece of property, so I know what you mean. And believe it or not,
yes.
my house is 100 years old, so I understand more than you think about what you're talking about. But you know what,
Uh-huh.
Kristen? And the reason I would love, once you get a chance, I know you got a lot of things going on. I'm not saying, but I would love to get back together with you. So once you get over to that other
Okay.
house and you do some exploration, whether it's research of, facts and feelings, whatever it is that you come up with, because I really truly feel like there is that right there is, you're gonna find a lot there, and
It's big.
you can, and you can't help but anticipate that it's gonna be connected. That the Bel Air, that there's a come. It's just like you said, that what's happened there does not occur in a vacuum. Okay, and once you told me
Mm-mm.
what went on over
No.
there,
Mm-mm.
okay, that right there tells me that you're probably gonna find a lot of interesting things once you have a chance to do some exploring over there and some research on it. I can almost guarantee you that, because
Yeah, it's a mess inside of there. Like you can't. We thought for years that you'd fall through the floor, but you can't. A couple guys went in, and they went in when we had our last weekend lockdown when Lola and Mike Simpson hosted it.
right,
Um, the one man, John, um, this vet, military vet, he ended up on the back porch of the Blue House crying his eyes out and puking from that
really,
house. Yeah, he said there was baby shoes and diapers still there,
oh
and
my God, and he was,
dog
oh,
dog. He was a mess. He was a total mess when he came back. Yeah. Yep.
wow,
So we just don't go. We just haven't gone in because we saw what happened to him, and there was a couple other people that were with him, and they're like, just don't, just not. They're not yet. Not. He's like, you, not yet. So we're just. I won't. I don't think. I mean, I'll sit at home and I'll research, but I don't think I'll go in there. I just don't
I
want
don't
to,
blame you.
and that goes back to paranormal people. Pick and choose your battles. You got to pick and choose your battles. I
Yes,
don't want
oh
that battle.
yes, oh
Oh God, I don't want
yes,
that one.
yes, yes, especially when you really don't know exactly what you're dealing with over there.
That's
Because
right. No.
because this is what you know from, because this is what you know, like what you became aware of because you were living right next door, and maybe the news or whatever, but in truth you really don't truly know what's there. And
Right. I mean, I thought they were antiquers. I thought they went and bought beautiful antiques and sold them on eBay. I thought
uh-huh,
that's what they did.
yeah,
I truly didn't think that, they would come over. He taught me how to do eBay. He taught me how to sell on eBay. He would be in my
yeah,
office, which is going up to the attic,
mm-hmm,
and taught me how to sell, like, just eBay stuff that we didn't need anymore. And um, turns out that they weren't selling antiques. They weren't. They're selling videos
wow.
of that. Yeah.
And you know what, I tell everybody, monsters, not 9 times out of 10, they don't look like monsters.
No. No, they don't.
you know
No, they don't.
Otherwise, the jig is up. So
Right.
they learn how to imitate regular emotions and act like regular people. You know,
Yes.
how many times as that guy, and I'm not saying this in this instance, but when you hear that national news that they discover a bunch of bodies buried in somebody's backyard, and then they interview the neighbors and they say exactly like what you said. Oh, but he was such a nice guy, and they were
Right.
really quiet, and it never looked like stuff like. So yeah,
Right. Absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
That's what we all
So
thought.
yeah, yeah, I think that I'm gonna be staying in touch with you because I'm so curious. From a
Right.
paranormal point, because I can tell you, I mean, it's dark and it's disturbing just on the face of it, but
Hmm.
I can tell that there's more to that whole thing. That like this chapter, the next chapter, if you want to call it as part of the history of the Bellaire or what happens with the Bellaire. I'm telling you right now, because of the land thing.
Hmm. Yeah, my buddies Dave Spinks and Dave Weatherly with SOS, I think it's called Society of the Supernatural. They
Mm-hmm.
help my friend Cindy. She owns a building, maybe about 2 blocks from the Bellaire House. That is it's an escape zone, and they went and did an investigation there because she had reported very odd activity.
Okay.
Um, there's activity there. I mean, it's Bellaire. Like you walk into one of the local mom and pop's restaurants, and some of the paranormal people come back and tell me this. They say, "Well, we
I knew it. I was gonna.
asked, if they thought that the Blair House was haunted," and the service staff is like, "The whole damn town is haunted. What are you talking about? When are you going to help us?" You know? Yeah. And they get attitudes with them, not disrespectfully, but somebody will do something right, they don't know that it takes years to discover. They think that when this is what pisses me the most, when paranormal team comes in and they do an investigation and they stir stuff up and they leave, well, what's the family supposed to do? There's no house blessing. There's no nothing, and that aggravated me for years. For years, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we've got these ideas and we have these things, but thank God I didn't have to live in the house anymore.
Right. Well, you know what?
You know what I mean? When they started to do the full-fledged investigations, I cannot imagine, and I pray to God that everybody's safe, that when it comes to living in their home, you know, I don't know. I was listening.
You know what,
I
Kristen?
remember my I remember us being all together. I remember it. I can't stick with the team, a team.
Well, I'm losing you a little bit on the
I'm still here. Are
transmission.
you there? Did they screw
Yeah,
up
I'm here. I'm
again?
here. I'm here. But you know
Okay.
what? I'm gonna like I said, and as a matter of fact, I'm even gonna send you a clip. I mean, there's even been murders there. Like, I mean, around that area. That, considering I know it's a small town and a low population, which even from like one from like 1938 that involved a minor, like you said, that there's been a lot of accidents because of the trains, which is normal. I mean, you can't put everything on the paranormal. That life is life and bad things happen like that. But you know, um, I really wish you the best of luck. I have a feeling that this is going to get resolved in the end the way you want it, which is and I want to bring you back on, like I said, because I want to see what goes on next door. But either way, just to find out what happens, I'm putting links to your website on the credits of the show. Okay. Uh, so like because considering that you've set down such great rules as far as for groups to go in there, it's a fantastic training ground for uh for paranormal groups.
Yeah, thank you. What happened happened to me. That's all I can. I lost you. I lost you completely. I have no idea what you said.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, then no, that I was saying that the Bellaire House, considering that you've set down these rules, it's a fantastic training ground or
Yes.
or just besides the fact of the actual investigation, because of not only because of what can be captured there, but like what you said, that you offer amenities so that people can actually truly investigate, not be thinking, okay, I got to get out of here and then I got to go drive somewhere.
Right.
So anyway, I've got your credit. I've got your listings your on the credits of the show as to how people can connect to the site for the Bellaire House.
Okay.
Okay. Plus that I know you booked that you've got that's out on Amazon, right?
Yes, it is. Yep. And that's just the beginning. I wrote that book for the next homeowners of the house to give them detail by detail of what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I did that. But, you know, I'm halfway through a second book that's a heck of a lot more educated than the first book because I'm educated now. But it's just like, what's the point of releasing it when we don't even know what the fate of the house is? So it's sitting there on my desk. I'm not touching it right now. I'm just kind of stopped everything. And I'm living, you know what I mean? I'm living life with my family. So that's
Sure.
cool. And I'm going to take that for now. You know, I'll definitely take that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just let it go, and it's like, it's gonna get resolved one way or the other. But at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, you know, um, it it's there's something sometimes that we don't get me wrong. I understand about worrying about things, but there's a point that the worrying is not going to change the outcome no matter how much you worry. You
That's
know,
right. That's
so
right.
and
Yep.
moments with your family, you can never replace those no matter how hard you try. So, but like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
have a feeling things are going to work out for you. I have a feeling as far as the Bellaire House, and we'll stay in touch, and uh, we'll see what happens, and absolutely, I wish you the best of luck,
Thank you.
Kristen, uh, because I know I have a feeling whether it's through the Bellaire House or not, even though I do have feel it's going to get resolved. You know what? You sound like a really smart lady, and there's
Thank
a
you.
it's like what I call, your horizons are, despite sometimes that we telescope about because we get caught up in what we're doing day to day, and especially when you're going through what you described now with the Bel Air, there's more beyond that for you. I'm sure of it.
I think so, but I think I'm going to go into hiding if this doesn't, if we lose the house, I'm just going to be by myself for probably a year, work on my clientele that I have, my private clients, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find a psychologist to teach me how to live life after this. I don't know. I don't know anything other than that right now because that's what I've lived for 13 years. So I got to get that under my belt,
Sure. But you know
you
what? You
know?
made a very good point. There's nothing better than for a while not doing anything. Not
Yeah.
nothing. When I say not doing it, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Not the okay. It's like I'm just gonna stop and just veg out. I'm gonna just like let my mind drift. I know that because we get so caught up with what we do and the
Mm-hmm.
to-do list and the phone and the thing and the that and the show and the kid and the that sometimes not doing anything does wonders, psychologically speaking, especially.
Right. Yeah, I'll probably work maybe 25, 30 hours a week because I don't have to work 50, 60 hours a week to pay for the Bellaire House anymore. You
Sure.
know what I mean? So I'm just going to maybe take a bath every day and,
Uh huh. Yes.
lay there for 3 hours and who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Either way, it'll be worked out. So good
Yeah.
luck to you, and thank you again so much for spending this time with us,
Thank
Kristen.
you.
I truly appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending time with me tonight, too. It was
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Take care,
And just
darling.
keep in touch. You too. Thank
Absolutely,
you.
you got it. Bye bye.
Alrighty. Bye bye.
Okay. Oh, this thing is lagging. Darn it. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that because I know I did. It's so funny because I'm not kidding you. Prior to this, me and Kristen were like figuratively, if not literally, I don't have that much hair to pull out, trying to get the Skype thing going. And it wasn't. And I've connected a million times, and she has it too. And I couldn't find her. We were sending each other requests, and it wasn't working. It was like we were there. Finally, we called each other on the phone. And we were laughing because we realized that it was like, okay, let's take this out of the equation. Of it was like, okay, there's somebody here that's putting their 2 cents worth in. Yes, a paranormal sabotage moment. You know how I feel about those. But anyway, um, I think it was so interesting to speak to her because I know she's glossed over a lot of what happened. She's written the book. Um, she's retold the stories a million times. Uh, and you know what? Despite everything that's in that house, the experiences she's had, because even I was telling her, before we started recording, that I had looked at a lot of the history that she researched that she's put up on her site about this the family that originally was there, the Hetheringtons, and I was out telling her, I said, you know what? This guy was successful. I mean, I don't see anything really dark, bad, except people living a normal human life where sometimes tragedies happen, especially back then. Uh, Children died. People died. People died at home. People had their babies at home, died at home, had wakes in their home. This was not like, because we look at it now, and nowadays when you see somebody say, "Oh, they died in the house," they're like, "Oh my God, somebody died in the house," and it's like, yeah, well, sometimes they can't help it because they died. But back then, that was the norm, and then people had wakes in their house, and that was the norm. So that in and of itself doesn't make it per se a spooky thing. And when I looked, I was gonna ask her, where do you think that um, the Bellaire got dark with a house? And then we talked about the land. Was it something that was there before this guy constructed it? Uh, she made mention another thing that we talked about that I didn't talk about because we talked while we were trying to connect on Skype, which is they got the mines underneath the house that they had that fire, and I'm going to tell you, it never fails. Things having to do with the underground of the house, whether it's the basement or stuff like mines or tunnels, not only do you get hauntings, but it's always really negative, malevolent, intimidating stuff. Every time I run across buildings, houses that have that type of profile with it, like I said, either a basement or tunnels, or in this case, mines, when people experience the haunting, it's got a really, really dark slant to it. And it's like, okay, thank God I don't got basements here in South Florida. Yay! Because it's almost like there's something about the earth being disturbed. I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure how that impacts it. But anyway, I'm lagging. I know I'm lagging. But so anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed it. I know I did. I thought this was a fantastic interview with Kristen. That fact of what's going on next door. Hmm? Talk about the land. That's very dark. Okay. And I'm going to make a point here. A lot of times, especially because we've been conditioned by Hollywood, we always think of malevolence or demonic. And I'm not saying it's demonic. I'm just using that word because everybody else uses it. So why not? But anyway, dark, malevolence, evil. There you go. And when it comes through the supernatural, it's like people spitting stuff out, or their eyes going wide, or they're doing that backwards stand. And no, folks, the influence of evil is when people do exactly what she described that happened next door in that house, which is called molestation of children. Believe it or not, the true intent of evil is to destroy. Think about it. What's more destructive? Running around and scaring the crap out of people because you're doing something not humanly possible? Okay, where they're like calling the nearest priest or clergy, or to basically corrupt a person to where they get to the point that they do that. I'm telling you right now, I know it's not as scary or as gripping as what Hollywood wants us to believe, but that right there, and I've seen it a lot of times, is very, very common when you have deep, dark spiritual turbulence in a house when there's the influence there. And I'm not talking about a regular haunting, okay, where you got grandpa or the neighbor or maybe the guy that built the house. Yeah, it could give you cold chills and you feel kind of bad. And to be honest with you, I still that's Marlene's um, Marlene's theory of the way it should be. The living should not coexist with the dead. I don't care who they are. I don't care what their intentions. They go, they can come back and visit, but them staying there all the time, old man, little kid, I don't care who it is. It's not good for the living or the dead. That's what Marlene believes and knows based on a lot of years of experience, okay? But anyway, but what I'm saying is, when you got that kind of haunting, it's scary, and yeah, eventually the idea is to move everybody on, and go on to whatever. But when you've got something that's malevolent, or something that became malevolent along the way, or maybe mixed where you got some, you do see stuff like this. You see the corruption of humans, okay? You don't see it happen overnight either, okay? It filters in and it does something to you. Um, and part of what Kristen said, she was involved with this house, either living or being the landlord for years. And she herself realized that when she was outside of it, and thankfully she was astute enough to recognize what was happening and open to accepting that there was something in that house that was affecting her. There's a lot of people that never want to go there. They never, they make the connection maybe subconsciously, but consciously they don't ever want to make the connection that whether they behave a certain way or they feel certain ways when they're in a certain building, like in their house, they never want to go there. They leave it there. And she recognized it, which is hats off to you, Kristen. Okay? But I'm telling you, I know it's a lot less dramatic, but if you really do want to know what evil is about, this is the way it manifests. And sometimes, guess what? Sometimes horrible things like this happen and it never makes the headlines. People are victimized. Animals are victimized by people that become monsters because they're influenced by evil. Okay? And nobody ever knows about it. As a matter of fact, there's a gazillion million untold stories from time immemorial where things never come to light. So, and the purpose of this, all right, is that when I was talking to Kristen about like where everybody sometimes is tripping all over themselves, especially if you're not really experiencing the paranormal, because you want to have that shock and awe moment that something whatever does something. Somebody somersaults backwards in the air and you're like, oh my god. You got to be really, really careful what you're asking for. Okay, I suggest to anybody who's going into paranormal, go into the paranormal light before you go into that, because it's what can walk with you once you come into contact with something like this is something that I guarantee you at some point you're going to wish to yourself, why did I ever go to this place? You know, especially, and this happens a lot to people who don't understand what they're going to engage with, underestimate it or overestimate their abilities, uh, and just think, it's a bunch of bullshit, and it's not. It's not. You got to be really careful. And if you don't believe me, listen to what she said. That was lightly. This experience with the Bellaire House has colored Kristen's life and that of her family for years, to the point you all heard it. She wants to be able to offer the experience to paranormal researchers, but she does not want to live there. As a matter of fact, she wants to have very little contact, physical contact with that house. And I guarantee you nobody does that because they've got nothing better to do. She has good reason to. And, other things, you could read her book and other things that, she doesn't publicly say and or has written about. But anyway, guys, I hope you like the show. You know, I hope you hit the like button. I hope you subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot more interesting guests coming on very, very soon. And I'm hoping, like I said, that I want to be able to bring Kristen back on just to see as an update what's happening with the Bellaire House. And especially if something happens with that next door property. So again, guys, today it is Today's Father's Day. I know I'm going to air this a lot later now because I stagger these things. But I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the week. Even though you're probably going to see this a lot later on, for those fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Thank you so much and take care.